That's enough. Welcome to Guitar Talk. That was a little of
hand style.
That was a little picking, but it was in the Spanish style. Alternate picking is what I call it. But Stan's gonna.
If I call it Spanish style.
Stan is gonna turn me out. Well, it's in the frame of it's here. This show is about picking, as you could probably guess by now. It's a fascination of mine. It's one of the things I think that you should move on to and really, really try after you get the basics down. But anyway, welcome to Guitar Talk. My name is Matt Cogswell. I'm the host. To my left is Stan Biankowitz, our guru and all-around tech guy. To my right is the famous Robert Lipet, who is little known for, well known for his classical guitar skills. Well, what I'm going to ask, a very basic picking pattern, to me, Stan, when people pick up this beautiful instrument and start playing, they get their chords, they get the strumming patterns, they get time, which is super important, time. Yep. You got to come in on time. Yep. Rhythm is super, super important. The picking part is to me, is the playing part. You hear it in so much music. Neil Young, it doesn't have a song, I don't think, he plays on guitar acoustically without picking, without dropping a note, or without adding a note. You know, the old, even going back to the Byrds, they add a note on and they drop it as a basis for a whole damn song. Yeah. So this stuff kind of fascinates me. And Stan is going to talk about basic picking patterns and where they come in, you know, what their relationship is to the chord playing that you're doing. Take it away, Stan.
Hi. Well, let's start off with the fact that we're going to be using our fingers as opposed to a flat pick, which is kind of what the reverse was in the around 1918 or so, as we were starting to use steel strings for volume reasons, not having electricity, and strumming became a little difficult with our fingers. Therefore, we went to a pick. But going back to using your fingers, that's usually what people do, is they grow their nails, or in more modern terms, depending on what style of music you're playing, using steel strings, because fingernails get beat up. A lot of country and rock and roll, rockabilly. There's traditional finger picking, there's classical guitar and the style that they use, along with flamenco, which uses a similar style with your fingers. And there's different ways of picking with your fingers, inclusive of using a finger pick versus using your fingernail.
The sound is different to me. To me, it's more real. I like it better than picking.
Well, in all cases, equalization shifts with every type of material that you do, and you're trying to find a tone that works for you. Finger picks were always felt clumsy to me, so in my opinion, and I want to stress opinion, finger picks are clumsy to me, so therefore I stopped using them. But I did have, and I do have, genetically a set of strong nails, so I can beat up a steel string pretty well with just my fingernails. In classical, well, just in playing in general, just using your hand as opposed to a flat pick, hitting them all together or strumming them across with your nail. Some people still prefer doing this as opposed to using a flat pick, rather be running against their nail. Again, your choices are comfort, how well you can deliver what you want to say, and ease to deliver that via the way you've chose to pick the instrument. When we get into classical, before we get into patternistic style picking, the classical relies on two types of finger strokes. And when we talk about a classical guitar, we don't usually refer to this as the fretboard. We refer to this as the keyboard. Because Classical wasn't really designed to play, to basically strum behind someone singing. You know,
They're more out front.
They were a bit more up front. Differences between styles of, let's say, flamenco versus classical. Flamenco is a performance that involves more than just the guitar. And just like a tap dancer, the dancer in the flamenco is the drummer. And the guitar player works
I can see that.
the drum part of the instrument, because this is fundamentally a drum. This is an instrument that's in the percussive family, something that is struck. And not only can you strike the strings, if you go on YouTube, there are tons of people that,
you can do.
that go back to using both the strings. And there's one guy on YouTube that used the snare, comes out of this part of the guitar, the bass comes out of this part of the guitar while he's playing. The whole instrument can be used musically. It's not just what certain people limit it to, kind of a thing. There are people that limit it, but in those limitations come out with a renaissance of that's a bad word. That's not that wasn't the right word. Sorry, a plethora or a cornucopia of music.
A smorgasbord.
Within that limitation. But let's go back to the actual the way they use the finger. You want your hand, and this is why another reason why you position a classical on your left leg. Classical usually gets a footstool, which I didn't bring, but I'm leaning my leg to do that. And another reason why a classical goes on the left leg is the neck is shorter to the body. They made the neck longer for steel string reasons. But if you look at old steel strings from prior to 1930, they were 12 frets to the neck like a classical. If we can take a look at the guitar Bob's got, he's got a classical, all right? And his 12 fret, point out your 12 fret, there it is. Whereas if you go back to me, here's my 12th fret, so I got 2 frets clear.
His looks wider, too.
His is wider because, again, it's not necessarily used for chordal work. It's used for spacing. And in order to get a good spacing everywhere, they widen the neck.
Yeah.
All right? So some non-finger picking would be something like Blackbird. And if you listen to the record carefully, he's strumming that part. I've forgotten it. Oh, where am I?
Yeah, he picks and strums.
He picks and strums.
And he also you can hear there's a note or two missing. He's also muting at the same. Of course, yeah. Now that's a hell of a guitar player. That's Paul McCartney.
No. That's someone who doesn't know how to finger pick, but wants to make it sound like he does know how to finger pick.
He certainly sounds like he knows how to be.
It works. It's all how you make the presentation. Remember, the only good sounding guitar is being played by the good guitarist, and the good guitarist is the one that will make you believe that they can do something else when they really don't. But that's probably the most finger-picked song in the business. Against Paul McCartney. But again, back to however you want to use your fingers, that's okay. Back to the classical, you want to be so your fingers are perpendicular. Also, you're going to be looking at how your nail is cut. But usually book 1 of any classical technique will usually have their opinion of how you should cut a nail. You should look at more than one classical book because everybody has their own, just like a rear end, their own opinion of how they should carve the nails. But they all agree that everything should be in a perpendicular situation. Your thumb should never be like that. It should be like this. And then, if I can position the camera so they can see my hand. Now, when I'm playing right now, you're seeing my fingers just curl up. Those are what they call free strokes. For volume reasons, bass players and classical guitar players use what they call rest strokes, where the string actually gets plucked and gets caught by the next string. Much louder than, but cannot be executed as quickly. Of course, with practice, the good classical player can do that. Flamenco uses similar styles of hands as far as playing, because the nail needs to be perpendicular. The more nail you have, the brighter sound you're going to have. The less nail you have, the more you're going to incorporate your fingertip, which is a duller tone.
Yeah, I've seen flamenco guys, they actually have their picking hand and they put nail polish on it.
To strengthen the nail.
That long.
To strengthen the nail. That's why they put the nail polish in, because if you break it, you're out of pick. Same thing with the classical players. They will do that. People who break a nail, one of the things that they do is they take a ping pong ball and they chop off a chunk of ping pong ball and super glue it to the back of their nail, and then carve the ping pong ball until it's the shape that they want on the nail.
Interesting.
I'd like to just move over to Bob and have him just kind of demonstrate right-hand style on a classical. If we can get a little close-up on his hands, that'd be fantastic.
Well, here it goes. You know, I'm out of practice, but here it goes.
If we can get a little more right hand, that'd be fantastic. That's wonderful.
Sorry.
That's okay. Now Bob's using mostly free strokes. Do you have anything that you play with where you could demonstrate rest strokes? Now Bob is using a lot of free strokes at this point.
Sorry.
That's okay, but notice how perpendicular his hand is to the strings.
I also noticed he's using alternating bass line.
Well, that's because that's the way the song was written.
Well, I'm saying, but he'll hit this one, then he'll hit that one as a bass, and then he'll hit all of them.
But that's the way the song was written.
I know, but it's an alternating bass line.
Right, it is. But that's the way the song was written. Unlike when we go into a pattern. Now, can you demonstrate a little bit of free, like rest stroke, Bob? Do you have anything to? And watch that right hand. Now this is what they call a rest stroke, where the finger is actually resting onto the next string for volume reasons. And obviously Bob can play a rest stroke a lot faster than I can. All right, going on with fingerstyle.
Cool.
We're going to go into patterns. One of the most famous of the pattern players, and I think it all came from the banjo being finger picked. They went into banjo style finger picking with the guitar. Merle Travis, and there is also what they call Travis picking. I don't do that. Merle was very 1, 2, 3, 4 with the bass, and wasn't as much an alternating bass as someone named Chet Atkins, who did more of an alternating bass. This is just one of many variables of pattern, one of many variables of fingers. In my case, in teaching this, unfortunately, and fortunately, the unfortunate part was I knew a lot of finger pickers that didn't have fingers. Bruce Langhorne, who fingerstyled the background of all the Bob Dylan hits before the motorcycle accident, actually had 2 skin grafts over his first 2 fingers, used no fingernails, basically just used his raw fingers to finger pick. and he's in the hardcover of American Finger Pick. He's a great finger picker. The gentleman that taught me how to get going with this was a guy named Doug Giddings, who, what was that guy from Texas? Jerry Jeff Walker? What? Jerry Walker?
Jerry Jeff Walker?
Yeah, the guy who wrote
Bojangles?
Mr. Bojangles.
Yeah, Jerry Jeff Walker.
Yeah, he was the guitarist for Jerry Jeff for a while before he moved to Los Angeles. And meeting him in Los Angeles and him being out of a job and me being out of a job and having a friend in common, we ended up crashing in the same place, and he showed me some stuff. And what I'm going to show you is how to finger pick a pattern. What you see here, if I can get the glare out, there we go. What you see here is actually the strings of a guitar. And the T and the 2, the T is the thumb and the 2 is my second finger. So even in classical, it's thumb, first finger, second finger, third finger, pinky, or fourth finger, sorry. We're going to strike the 2 outside strings. The reason I'm choosing an open G chord off of the first position is, as you can see, when we go to the D chord, because of strings that aren't going to be used, the pattern is going to shrink down. Okay, where we had strings we weren't using on the G chord, jeepers on the D chord, we're using them all. All right, and because he was missing a finger, he never taught me how to use the third finger, but that actually ended up being a good thing for me. And the reason was, when I went out to Los Angeles in the early 70s, early mid-70s, they were starting to come up with what they call hybrid picking, where you kept your nails or finger picks and incorporated a flat pick. And I liked that because the thumb pick would always wrench my thumb. Usually they were very thick picks because you wanted to get a loud bass response and you didn't want to have to pluck as hard with your thumb to get it. So remember, picks work like hammers. The heavier the head, usually is designed for the bigger job. So if you have to bang in a big nail like that, you want a big-headed hammer because you don't want you to use your arm, you want the hammer to do the work. So the bigger the pick, the less you got to push against the strings, whereas the thinner the pick to get louder, the more the pick actually starts to break up and fall out of your way, which is why I can't usually go below medium-grade picks. I do like medium because they sound more natural to me. So again, like an opinion.
You're going to do this G chord with that type of picking?
With that type of picking, and I'm going to do the hybrid picking, but because I wrote it out with the fingers, I'm going to start with the fingers first. Now, the hard part about picking, no matter what style you're doing, is coordinating your right hand with your left hand. In other words, being able to change chords. Now that's me doing it the way it was written, and now I'm going to substitute the pick.
There is a difference.
I like the way on a steel string the flat pick does a better job for me than the thumb. And now I'm going to go to the D chord.
Okay, now, if you could do that slowly, just through one round of it, just to show me, you know, each individual.
I will do that, but one of the reasons I like hybrid picking is I used to do some tunes where the verse, I would sing the verse with the picking pattern, but then when I got into the chorus, and trying to strum with a thumb pick is wicked horrendous, again, because of how thick they can be. They tried making different variables where you can buy this little strapping system and insert any pick you want to.
Some people Johnny Winter liked it.
Johnny Winter did. It's an opinion.
It's
how comfortable you are with it. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. Okay? So you want me to go through it slowly?
Yeah, so what the
So
first
now here,
strike.
So here I'm doing the G. So it's the outside 2.
Okay.
And it falls out musically as quarter note, eighth note, quarter, dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun,
You could see that example in a lot of songs too. Jimmy Page in a bunch of the Zeppelin songs. He does it the exact same way.
So it's the 2 outside on the G chord. It's the 2 outside. Then the alternate note I chose was a D note because it's the 5 of the chord. And then the B note, or that could be a D note depending on how you finger the chord. Okay. So 2 together. Next, alternate bass, another high note, alternate bass, another high note, alternate bass. So it starts 2 together, then it starts to alternate.
And do you recommend that to me, it would be practice on one chord until you got it down, and then forget about this hand, just move it to another chord without even thinking. That would be the way. What I'm saying is for a beginning guitar player, practice the alternation before you move your hand.
Well, of course, and then no matter how hard you try,
you're going to flub, you're going to clam.
Well, the whole thing is you've got to start developing what a drummer has going for them, and that's called independence. And there's a few really good bass players that can sing, but most of them, and the ones that you think are great, actually don't have as much independence from the bass as you would think, because singing and playing bass can be very, very difficult because of the fact that you need a good amount of independence to sing. Not all songs vary that much, but there are some that just almost impossible to sing as a bass player and sing the song, with complexity and being where you're supposed to be rhythmically in the song. So anyway, that's a little of a tangent that I didn't mean to go on to.
It's okay. I'll soak it right up.
So now, when I go to the C chord, obviously I'm not using the low note. I'm going to be using the A note with the C hitting on the 3rd fret.
It's a nice, it almost serves as a passing tone as well. Da, 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 yeah.
And then with the D, again, like I showed you, so the C...
So your D would have a different bass line then?
Yep. So when you look at the C chord, you'll notice there's an X there. We're not going to use the low E. Now, you can, as you develop the pattern, you can do a lot of crazy things and incorporate the pattern and do tunes with it. What you're going to do is first you need to get the independence of the left hand and the right hand, and then by increasing that independence, now you can play separate notes along with the pattern. Okay?
Now, and also the other thing I wanted to ask you was the independence part. Basically, that is something of your design that the way that's picked, or did you get that the way the notes are done in succession from this guy? Or you just did it on yourself?
No.
Because
he started me off with the same thing that I'm starting everybody off with. Here's the foundation, move on from there. And then create variables. Like there's another pattern.
That's what I'm talking about, variables. I've been doing that myself.
So you can do what I call, this is kind of like an alternate pick, which I tend to use in soloing on occasion. Hang on. Now what I'm doing is, so if you can see 4 strings.
It's almost like the NBC.
Yeah. But I'm taking 4 strings and only 4 strings. But you can widen the pattern as you go along, but I'm just going to write it out on 4 strings.
It almost seems to me no matter where you are, if you're up here in D, you're using a different bass. This is the bass.
So this is strictly like an eighth note pattern or a quarter note pattern.
Still alternating bass.
But it bounces and alternates, and
I would think anyway.
you can get crazy things going. Where'd my flat pick go? There.
Use your fingers.
Well, no, I'm just so used to it with the flat pick. So I got to move to the first finger.
And again, and like I said, to me, all right, it seems this way to me. Maybe you guys aren't seeing it the same way I am. But you're up here, you're doing this. And then you're doing this. So to me, it's alternating.
No, you're not doing the pattern though. Do it again?
I'm doing something else totally different, but I'm saying, I mean, you're using boom, 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 and everything that you've done, you're alternating. Yeah. And to me, it's serving as a bass line.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it sounds like to me anyway. It's a wonderful sound.
Okay, I guess we're going to have to wrap it up at this point.
I'll tell you what, I hate to wrap it up because there's so much more of this. I mean, we could do this.
We should have someone who does this for a living.
Yeah, we're gonna bring somebody in here. We're gonna bring somebody in that knows how to do this. Good. Plus, I'm getting me a thumb pick.
How about Shara?
I mean, everybody does.
Sharo, yes.
Even who's Roger Gilmore? David Gilmore.
David Gilmore. Everybody does it. Everybody uses fingertips. So say goodbye, Matt.
Goodbye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
Whoa.